All right, we're back. Market Moguls, episode 3, and we have a lot to talk about. Rick had one eye for a total of a few days, 4 days, but we wanted to record last week. It is the first week of May. Today's May 9th, and the world keeps getting crazier. There's more buzz on social media, and we have a lot to talk about. And, of course, we're going to tie it back into finances and marketing one way or another, because it's all the same, and it's intentional and strategic, and we're here to like peel the layers back. So again, give us that feedback, watch this, leave a comment, most importantly subscribe watching this, because we're only going to build more momentum as far as stuff that we talk about. But how is the eye?
Yeah. Well, it's good now.
Yes.
I mean, recovery time they said it was going to be 3 or 4 weeks, and it only ended up being like 5 days. So I'm thankful for that. But one thing I will say, I'll never take vision for granted again. Right. Like everything that I needed to do, like didn't matter if I had to run to the grocery store or whatever, couldn't do it because how are you going to drive?
Right.
So I was like,
one eye.
Yeah. So no, it was something that was unexpected. I was chomping at the bit to get in the studio, but things happen. But I'm here now. We're doing good. No, vision is back to 100%. So vision's clear, man.
It's sensational.
Keep pushing forward.
Well, I'm glad you got both your eyesights back, but you know, it keeps everything grounded in gratitude. As far as, like you said, I will never take vision for granted. Sometimes I tell it to my girlfriend, and she'll be like, "You do that?" I'm like, I'll sometimes walk around, and I'll walk around with my eyes closed just to test out my other senses. Like, okay, I'm gonna close my eyes, and I'm gonna see how well my listening is to my touch in terms of like the hallways, just to kind of put myself in that state of mind. Because if you couldn't have it, and those senses will just develop, they will begin to develop more as if you didn't have it. So I can only imagine for 4 days you just were like, what am I doing? So you had to count on other senses.
So inconvenient. Yeah, so inconvenient. And being an entrepreneur, you want to get up and move around. I mean, there's so many, between making content, I'll never take making content for granted again. Like all these little tasks that I'm so used to doing on a day in, day out basis were just completely gone. Yeah. So I kind of had to settle my brain, because my brain's like, I don't know how you exactly. As an entrepreneur, you're like, why are we sitting around? Why are we doing nothing right now? So the first day was really just more of a mental thing for me, where it's like, what are you doing? Like, come on, like we got things to do. Right. But then I think by the second and third day, I was just like thankful, because I actually got a chance to like relax and chill and like just be in the moment, which a lot of times I think as an entrepreneur, and you don't even necessarily have to be an entrepreneur, people that are just working 9 to 5 and, you know, the everyday grind, you're not really present in a lot of cases. It's you're living in the future of what's next for me. Here's what's going to happen tomorrow at work, or here's what happened earlier today with my friends or family or whatever. But you're never really in that state of the now. Like, how am I feeling right now? How am I showing up right now? You know, am I thankful for the present moment that I have? Because if you're not thankful for the present moment, I mean, the past is gone and the future will never arrive. You only have now. That's it. Right. So I think for me, it gave me a chance to like really just recharge the batteries for those 4 days. Right. But I think, you know, like I was texting you and I'm like, we got so much to talk about. So yeah, thankful to be back. That's for sure. So
no, that's important. I'm glad you said that. Well, a few things that popped on my mind. You were talking about, you don't have to be an entrepreneur. Like, I feel the word entrepreneur, it doesn't have to be necessarily literally you own a business. Right. Like, it's to be an entrepreneur is to solve a problem. But if you're not an entrepreneur, you should have the mentality of an entrepreneur to solve your own problems, as opposed to waiting for your problems to be solved. So I think that's super important. And then that was my first thought. I forgot exactly what you said after that. I had an ongoing thought, but I wanted to get an update for the TikTok ban. Yeah. There's so much that's happened. Oh, also, I posted the one clip that we've got that I posted on the Instagram or on TikTok that had talked about the ban and got 0 views.
I'm not surprised.
They were like, "No, we're gonna promote that."
Yeah, Instagram's like, "Yeah, we're not gonna push our competitor right now."
Yeah, we're not pushing it. Not even on TikTok. Maybe it was the partnership scenario as well, but I'd have to look at it. Zero talk. It got 0 views on TikTok.
To be honest, like it changes so fast. So that's something that I'm actively working on right now. Thank you, Sean, for kind of putting myself in a position where now I'm starting to look at my hooks more. I'm starting to look at my analytics more. There was like 6 months where I was just like posting videos and I'm getting like 200 to 300 views. Now,
you're like, what?
Yeah, exactly. to have 120,000 plus and you're getting 200 to 300 views, something's wrong, you know?
Sense.
So over like the past couple of weeks, I've been like experimenting with different things. And so like with that, I would have to look at it and say, oh, here's what's actually happening with it. But their algorithms change all the time. So it's really difficult to like know exactly what happened with that. But I don't know. We'll figure it out for sure. But yeah, so the TikTok ban, man, that is a topic that I have gotten a lot of. It's very interesting. It's very controversial. So I posted on my Facebook actually last night about I don't understand the hate toward TikTok right now. And if you're a creator, like I have creator friends on TikTok that are like texting me almost every day. And they're like, I'm nervous. I'm scared. Like, this is my livelihood right now. Are they going to ban this thing? Like, what's going on right now? You know? And then I have friends who, you know, are just, they may just consume it, or they may just have the app, or maybe they don't even have the app and they've just heard things about the app that are just like, no, they should definitely take it away. So it's very interesting, and it's a very controversial type topic right now. And what I can say for what I've seen and what, at least looking at it from a number standpoint, because obviously me being in finance, I'm going to look at it from a number standpoint. So right now, the president signed a bill basically saying that TikTok will be no more. They have to either sell the company or risk being banned altogether. Now, TikTok already came out and said we have no intention of selling at all. So the deadline with that is 9 months, assuming that the president doesn't extend it, which more than likely he will. So assuming he extends it, their deadline is 1 year from when the bill was signed. So that gives us till like April of 2025 before anything happens. Okay. Now, that's going to be prolonged a little bit because TikTok actually just sued. They sued the Biden administration, saying that this is an unconstitutional move right now. So that's going to prolong the process even more, because now you have to go through the judicial system, and you know, So they're going through the actual appeal process right now, which is to be expected. Now, what does that mean time horizon wise? It means that no matter what happens, regardless if they're forced to sell or get banned altogether, that would look like at least 2020, late 2026, early 2027 in that area. That is assuming they lose the appeal. If they don't lose the appeal and they win, then they don't have to go anywhere. So that's kind of where the update stands. But one thing that I've been talking about on my social medias is there's a bigger narrative going on here that we're not being told exactly. So the quarterly numbers came out for Facebook. So every quarter, companies have to report their earnings for their investors. So Facebook came out and their earnings were negative $138 billion. Negative 138. And it actually might be a little bit more than that, but it's somewhere in that range. Yeah. So they dumped a bunch of money into their AI. They dumped a bunch of money into their VR and their algorithm. And with all the research they've done with that money, it hasn't panned out for them. Meanwhile, if you look at the flip side of the coin, TikTok has increased by $27 billion during that same point in time. So you have our biggest social media losing over $100 billion, and you have
the contrast,
the competitor, $38 billion they've gained. So you can see from a
consumers' demand.
Exactly. So that's one big interesting point. And then the other thing too is you start to look at the people that are actively talking about buying it. Kevin O'Leary wants to buy it. Now the old Secretary of the Treasury wants to buy it. And you start to ask yourself, okay, Kevin O'Leary makes sense, but the Secretary of the Treasury wants to buy TikTok. Why?
Just trying to weaponize it to some degree, because that's how they see it. That shows you the perspective of some form of perspective that they have of the platform. Like it's not, this should be a very clear tell sign that social media it's not a game. This is a true vessel that controls a lot of momentum. And if the Treasury is looking to get their hands on it, they see a lot of control in some format. What control of details is probably multifaceted as far as like the list, but that's a serious deal. And as all of you said about the platforms, all I can think about as I, do marketing for all the businesses and all these different things is if your platform is at potential risk of being removed, we need to start collecting information. You got to start collecting emails. You got to start collecting phone numbers. You have to start collecting information of your customers that support you, because if these platforms disappear, then your audience disappears. Yep. And Gary Vee always talks about, like, if I would love for social media to leave right now, because if it did, I would just revert back to where the attention might be, and it might go back to a billboard, it might go back to a TV,
right?
And if these platforms go away, there's a lot of people that don't necessarily know what to do, and that, even for me, like, I didn't know that Facebook had negative 138 billion. Yeah. I'm sure we all recognize the AI feature that they've gotten with the updates. They're like, no, you got to use this, but in terms of they're trying to catch up, because right now it seems they're being victim to what they did to MySpace, when MySpace first came out, and then Facebook came out, and then Facebook overtook MySpace. Same thing with Instagram came out, and then Facebook, Zuckerberg bought Instagram from Kevin, and then now the cycle is happening full circle again, and it makes it even more apparent for me. Like, all right, I'm gonna do a video every day on YouTube, and even start advertising on X. Something I'm gonna be doing with the client pretty soon, but keeping options open.
Have to,
because things are changing so fast, faster than ever, as opposed to what life was like 10 years ago. And we just have to be on the offensive for our own lives. We have to be the problem solvers for our own lives, as opposed to just waiting for the problems to come to us. But that's where my mind was thinking, like 138 billion negative, billion, and then 38 billion net.
Yep.
But this going into November 5th, man, as we get closer, things are just ramping up more and more and more and more. And I don't know what we have to be ready for, but we have to be prepared at every level. Yeah. And I don't know, bro. Like, that, just preparation is all I can think about. This is where my mind is.
Think about it, in learning this from you, is I think about it from an attention standpoint. Where's the focus going to go as we get closer to November?
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to, again, push people to action. If you can show people a issue, and then you as a politician go, I can solve that issue, you're more likely to get votes than somebody that isn't vying for that attention, that isn't, out there addressing the problem that people have right in front of them. So I think that's a big point to what you're talking about. And that actually kind of reverts back to TikTok, because if you read all of these news articles about what's going on, the common denominator in all of them is the algorithm. That's what Kevin O'Leary wants. That's what the Secretary of the Treasury wants. It has nothing to do with the TikTok brand at all.
No.
It's simply the algorithm, which goes straight into attention. It's the TikTok algorithm is that good that they want it. And what I find interesting, I'll do TikTok lives all the time, and people ask me, what's going to happen if TikTok gets banned? And I think this is a no-win situation.
Removed. I want to test. Okay. I start saying remove, and I want to see if it passes.
Okay. Yeah. So let's just assume it gets removed. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that the government is making a really huge mistake. And it's a multifaceted mistake. So we'll look at this from two different angles. The first one being the reason why you have this issue with TikTok and you want it removed so bad is because of the algorithm, because of the information it's collecting. You're afraid that information is getting into the wrong hands. That's why they keep talking about national security, which I can understand. However, if you're forcing TikTok to sell or risk being removed, they've already said they're taking the algorithm with them if they sell. So really now somebody's basically buying a company without the key thing that's made it successful. So all the company ByteDance is basically the mothership company, if you will, that owns TikTok.
ByteDance.
All they'll do is they'll just take that algorithm and put it into a new app, and then just create a new app, call it something new, and you have basically TikTok version 2.0. So now they've just did a chess move against the U.S. government. So I don't understand why it made any sense to do this, first and foremost, because now the resources that we're going to have to go through as far as legally is concerned, as far as all this attention is concerned, is going to lead to nothing, even if the removal goes through. That's the first thing. But then the second thing I think about is, from a global economic standpoint, what does that look like for the U.S. economy? Because what we're basically telling China is we will only allow certain of your companies to exist, the biggest ones. We want the biggest ones that are a threat to our own, in this case, social media, or it could be, whatever, car makers, whatever brand you want to plug and play. We don't want those to be sold here. We don't want that because it's the competition. So what does that do from a global economic standpoint? Because it would be very simple for China to come in and say, if that's the game you want to play, then American companies can't exist here either.
They're taking back their equity of all the stuff they had to pay out to the United States.
And think about how much stuff we get in America
from China.
Exactly.
They're like, we're just going to take, literally, they're like, we're just going to take our half back, and now we control it now.
And unlike the United States, where TikTok can go through a legal process to potentially beat this removal, American companies don't have that. If the Chinese government comes in and says Apple can't exist in China anymore, your eyes just got big right there. You see what I mean? Like, if Apple can't exist in China, if Tesla can't exist in China, if NVIDIA can't exist in China, what does that do for our economy? It devastates our economy overnight. And these are the long-term ramifications that I don't think the government has really thought much about. This is a big deal global economically. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I don't think that TikTok is going to lose this. I think they're going to win, but it's just very interesting to see how big of a pushback TikTok is getting right now, strictly because of how good their algorithm is and how much attention they're grabbing right now.
Yeah, man. Just all I can think about is ego is the enemy. Our egos become too big, and therefore it's inhibited the people that are in those high places of power to continue to grow and overall learn the board in terms of like the chess moves go. Like the elo is very low in terms of being able to see five. Like shout out to Patrick David, his book, your next 5 moves. They don't see. It looks like they're not looking at it at the next 5 moves because they're blinded by their ego, and therefore China, they've kept track of history. Like it seems like America's just been looking forward in terms of like we're the best, and then with China, they've kept receipts of all of what they've been supplying towards the United States. They've struck gold with TikTok, and now they're thinking about these. If I had to guess based off of what you're telling me and with the timeline, they're thinking about all of what you just said. They're like, yeah, we own this equity now. We own a piece of, because every day we're talking about the algorithm essentially is farming more pockets of people. It's resonating with more pockets of people, and that right there builds impressions. It builds an identity of people. Like a lot of people don't have their own thoughts nowadays. Like I try to be very conscious of what I consume, and a lot of people aren't conscious. They just consume it, and then they wonder why they have those ideas or those thoughts, or why they want to buy something, why they hate something, why they love something. Like the stuff we were talking about going into, Drake versus Kendrick Lamar. Talking about Caitlin Clark with the WNBA.
Yep.
Like the content is getting so much more in depth, where the algorithm is keeping people on the platform, because that's what people want at the end of the day. The more you can keep people on the platform, the more the platform is winning. I don't want you to leave. I want you to stay. And I made a Instagram story about this maybe a few days ago, talking about this. Like, if I can keep people on the platform, then I got your attention. Eventually, I got your attention to make a decision.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's crazy, bro. The way you just broke that down. And again, that's why I was like, I'm asking you so I can get updates on it, because I see headlines and I'm like, let me wait till I talk to Rick to get.
Well, it's funny too, like hearing your perspective of it, because it makes so much sense with like the Drake versus Kendrick thing. Yeah. So when that whole thing started, my timeline was flooded with it, and I didn't even know too much about it.
All I see is like a bucket where it's like Drake, Kendrick.
That's it. Like, it was immediate, and it kind of makes sense though when you think about it, because if you look at over the past couple of years, they've been talking pretty heavily about it. Most people are getting their news from TikTok. Yeah. They're not getting it from the, Googles, the, whatever plug and play, the MSNBCs, the Fox Newses. They're not getting it from there anymore. Yeah. They're getting it from people on TikTok, the average everyday person. So it's that attention. I can get the information I want right now. Mm-hmm. I don't have to wait for them to make this video and cut it and all this and then, potentially water it down and put out whatever story they want.
Right.
I can get it from somebody who isn't biased, somebody who's coming in and just saying, here's what I heard, here's what's going on, here's the latest on it. And it was like literally when the Kendrick versus Drake thing happened, I'll scroll at night. Like that's my time to like kind of figure out, okay, what's my next move? What am I going to post tomorrow? And I could find nothing on finance news. It was all Drake and Kendrick. It was all Drake and Kendrick, which
that's intentional.
Exactly. Well, I think again,
the algorithm's smart enough to. I don't
know. And I think that's what it is too. Is it's like it's not just about my attention, but what is everybody else looking at right now too? Because and I'd be really curious to look at their algorithm and how it actually works, because there's obviously things that are pretty consistent on your feed when you're going through TikTok, but then they'll throw in curveballs that might be happening in society and just seeing how you react to them. Like, oh, this is big news right now. Let's see how Sean responds to this. Let's see how much attention he gives to this. And then all of a sudden it's like, if you watch 1 or 2 videos on that topic that's longer than like 30 seconds, now that's it.
I'm always
like we're just gonna keep
I'm like, no,
it's like
I watch something
to the second,
and I immediately got to go back to the video like not interested, because if you watch it just out of curiosity, I'm like, I'm gonna feed you more.
Well, and it's what I've noticed with TikTok is it's a very short time frame. It's like if you give a video 30 seconds worth of attention, the next 4 or 5 videos are going to be based on that same topic. So that's the algorithm that we're talking about, is it's picking up information that fast.
You got to be
right
careful
now.
with our brains. Like example, when your eye got scratched, your brain didn't know what to do. Like that's the symptom of just how fast paced the average human is moving right now. Of if you taken some time off where you had an injury, your brain didn't necessarily know what to do. A lot of people don't even know what to do at that time, and because everything is just so on the go. Every time we consume something, it's just like pouring a bucket into your brain. Before it was just tiny micro drops, like it was the newspaper, it was the radio, it was the guy on the street with the sign over him. Like have you seen the Joker?
The one with Joaquin Phoenix?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, where he was a clown and he had the sign over him. That was like the basis of communication. To now, it's just a complete just dump of just content every minute of every second of every hour. And if people don't have it, they don't know what to do. Like some people, have you heard about the power going out in certain states? Or like that's been like a big thing. Like my girlfriend works at a hospital. The computer system was out for the hospital for like a couple of hours where they couldn't process like finances or insurances. Yep. Because it just everything was run from computers. It's like, what's happening, bro? Like we go crazy if we don't have something for a few hours, let alone a few days. It keeps me reminding me of that movie, man.
Well, you can see why we live in such an anxious society. People, rushing to get things done, or their attention is focused elsewhere, and they're just not present. And that's why, like during that time, during those 4 or 5 days that I didn't have vision, that first day, crazy anxiety. Yeah. But then I think I talked myself down like halfway through the day, and I'm like, this is what life looks like over the next 4 days. This actually is really nice. It's nice to just be able to relax and not have anything that I need to focus on. You know what I mean? And just like bringing myself back into awareness about, being present and looking around at my situation and going, I have this moment though. You know what I mean? I don't have to worry about the future right now.
You got that you've developed the will to have that conversation with yourself. It sounds amazing. A lot of people might hear that and they're like, bro, like people are in it. They're deep into the matrix per se, where they wouldn't.
100%.
It's like, how would I pull myself out of that? And it's like, I don't even necessarily know to talk to about an answer, but it's just a question to ask yourself. Like, how would you pull yourself out of it? If your phone went off for more than an hour, like my SOS popped up, because I guess I had my Wi-Fi on as I was driving here, and then I was just like, why is it on SOS? I wasn't freaking out, but it was an inconvenience. It was a small, slight inconvenience, and it brought a little frustration, like 2% frustration, and then I got it. But if that happened with that minor, small event, like what would happen? Life would reset itself. That's basically what I'm thinking right now. Life would reset itself, and I'm always watching like the Predators on like Netflix or Our Planet. It just reminds me of what life would go back to. Like after all this stuff has happened, I don't know what I remember. I think I texted you. Remember I texted you about what's your plan if things go sideways? I texted like 5-6 people. I was like, you seem like you have a plan. I was like, what would you do? Okay. I was like, I know how to filter water, because that's basically where you have to have that card ready. It feels like intuitively, you have to have that card ready, because with this, as much as it makes me money and everything, and it makes a lot of businesses I work with money, you have to have a plan without it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about.
So I made a TikTok video actually that plays right into that about, what would you do in the event of a total catastrophe? Just society resets itself. And I think I gave you the answer. I have like a commune or a community or something.
Yeah.
And that relates back to the TikTok video I just made today about how networking is more important, in my opinion, than a college education is.
Yeah.
Because in a heartbeat, if something were to happen, I have people I can immediately go to and say, hey, things just hit the fan. What are we doing? Because I built that network, I built that trust, I built that relationship. And we hear about it big time. I know you do in marketing, and I definitely do in business, is you want to surround yourself with the right people.
Right.
I've been able to create crazy wealth because I have networked with the right people. I don't have a formal education as far as finance is concerned. Never took any of the series licenses. I didn't go to college for it, anything. It's all self-taught, and it's all networking.
But consulted millionaires at the bank.
Exactly. Consulted millionaires. Exactly. And been okay asking the right questions and being okay getting vulnerable. And I think that people are a lot more willing to help you than what society presents. I think society presents, and when I say society, I mean like news and what we see and what's put in front of us, is it's put in front of us that people are inherently bad. That's what we see. And that's just, it's simply not true. I think at the core of each person, people want to help. People want to, if Sean needs something, I want to be there for Sean.
Right.
So I think if something were to happen in the event of like a total, reset, I actually think it might be good for the planet, because we'll get back to a time much like we did during 9/11. I mean, 9/11, we were pretty divided until 9/11 happened. Then 9/11 happened, and then all of a sudden it was like we all banded together as a country, and we're like, what do we need to do? How do we pick up the pieces? How do we get back to the greatness that is America? I feel like that would be the exact same thing if it were to really hit the fan, where it's like, okay, like we built this thing, we're going to get back together, we're going to do the exact same thing. So I think networking is a huge part of that. But at the end of the day, I think that a lot of these fears that are put in front of us, we wouldn't have to worry too much about, just because like we would find a way to figure it out. That's just our inherent nature.
It's just everything is magnified with it being broadcasted to us at this scale. Like I was telling you, my algorithm is showing me 5 tornadoes that's happened within the last year or the last couple of weeks. Those things already happened. They were happening before social media, but to have access and know they happen simultaneously at the same time, that's a different paradigm of what people have access to. Or if somebody lit themselves on fire with this event as a protest, so what's happening here, you can now get exposed to that simultaneously, and it's transforming or de-transforming our brains. But going to the currencies factor, I think that's a reflection of, I think, how people might approach the currency thing of that, because that is valuable. Like I'm right there with you. Like my biggest currency is, it's not what I have is, but who I know. But that's where I think that's a reflection of where things are not prioritized in terms of at the highest level, and that's why we're getting compromised in these certain ways, because there's a lot of people that hang their hat as far as where they got their education, like what happened before, what happened 10 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. And so the ego of what I did 5 years ago, or I got that degree, or, I met that one person, or I was the high school, I was a high school pro star football player. There's no development after that, but it's just hanging hat of what happened of that iconic moment and not developing after that. Like, Ben Francis, the founder of Gymshark, he was talking about the video I was watching. I'll just be perfect to pull it up, but he just made one right before I got here saying, like, make sure you're making an effort to learn something, just the basis of it. Like, I've been getting more content of Japanese children and Chinese children of what they're like at 5 years old, what they're able to do at 5 years old, and how incompetent we are at 25-year-old, 25, 35, 55 years old. And it's a telltale sign. It's like the, $138 billion negative Facebook to 38 billion profit for TikTok. It's the average American, and then you have a 5-year-old from China and Japan, and they're able to cook. They're able to function as a, I don't even know necessarily what to call it. Just they're more competent to do things that a lot of people would struggle to go ahead and do.
Well, I think that's a reflection of capitalism too, because if you look at their lifespan, Japan has the most people above 100 than any other country. I mean, it's like a 10 to 15%. But if you look at their diets too, their diets are like intense, all organic stuff, like, you know, as nature intended. They eat a lot of rice, things like that. And then you look at our diets here and it's like, yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense. But what's the back of that? Like, why is it that health is pushed over there, but over here fast food's pushed? And it comes down to capitalism. Like, it's McDonald's needs to make as much money as they possibly can to make their shareholders happy, to make the CEOs happy, to be able to pay for the marketing, to be able to pay for the advertising, to be able to pay for all of this stuff. So at the back of it, capitalism, I mean, we've built America, and America is a great country, but at the same time, we need to be adaptive too. We need to understand that we can't live in this lack space. And I think that's where, you know, getting back to the Facebook versus TikTok thing, I think this is where we're lacking as a country, because we have a golden opportunity right here. Instead of saying we're going to remove TikTok altogether because of the algorithm, what would stop a Facebook or Instagram from going to TikTok and saying, how can we collaborate? How can we work together to create something? Yeah. You know what I mean? What would stop that from happening? Yeah. Because that's an abundant thinking. That's the community thing. That's the, if push came to shove, how do we work together to make something great? Yeah. And that's the lack mentality, the black and white thinking. Exactly. Yeah. So it's very interesting to watch this happen, because all these decisions are based in fear that the U.S. government's doing right now. And I think that it's interesting when you have that topic with, again, I know we started the pod with it, is, you know, the people that are the creators versus the people who are just consuming. It's like you're seeing some of the aisle say, no, TikTok needs to stay around because we have a good message. Like, I wouldn't be able to help people financially, the amount of people I can help, over 120,000, without TikTok. I'm solving a real world problem because of TikTok. That's the good side right there. But you're also going to have the negative side that a lot of the consumers see, where it's like, you're seeing a lot of the news. You're seeing a lot of, oh, here's the problem with, you know, whether it be the Trump trial or it be whatever they're seeing out there, is it's like negative, 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 and then whatever their kids are seeing. And it's like, you're gonna choose one side based on what you see, when in all actuality, there's a middle ground here where we could have a conversation, and that conversation isn't happening at all. And I think it's very interesting when you look at that. But which was kind of, you know, to segue into the next topic, very interesting when you start to look at the Drake versus Kendrick thing. If you look at that and what's going on with that from a social media standpoint, I mean, my brother's team Kendrick all day. And he knows I'm team Drake. So I'll get like texts from him from time to time, and he's like, so is like, Drake ever going to respond to this thing? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, Drake's responded 5 times, but he hasn't heard Drake's side. He's heard Kendrick's side. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting to see that, because you have literally fan pages that are popping up. I just saw it yesterday on TikTok. You have fan pages popping up of, if you're team Drake, go follow this page. If you're team Kendrick, go follow this page. And these pages are blowing up just simply because what side are you on?
It's polarization, yeah. To go, before you go into that, but when you were talking about America's a great country, my first thought was, you could be a great country and you still can improve. I think that's that is the flaw when it comes to a lot of just the ideology. If you're great, there's no need to improve. If you're the cool quarterback in high school that everybody is awesome with, there's still the opportunity for you to improve, instead of just relishing of, oh my God, you're the best here in the school. But I just wanted to say that. But with the Drake and Kendrick, it's the iPhone, it's the Android. It's, do you drive a Toyota? Do you drive a Ferrari? It's so interesting to see. But for those that are business owners, this is an opportunity that I always see. Like, example, this is Dave Ramsey, and then you've got, who would be another, I guess, it'd be Robert Kiyosaki. It's like Dave Ramsey has great advice, because there's a lot of people that feel that way about a lot of micro industries, because the beautiful thing, like, okay, Drake is way bigger than Kendrick in terms of name, but in terms of how people might view, oh, he writes a song versus he doesn't, that's where a lot of people have that defining line. But this is something that you can learn from. Like, it's not even about if you're on Drake or Kendrick, but how can you become the conversation at the dinner table? Right. How can you be the conversation on the podcast amongst your consumers? That is the biggest thing for me that I was really excited about. Obviously, I heard it, and I do listen. Like, I remember when Machine Gun Kelly was going against Eminem, and that was like a big thing, and then it happened within a week. But this was like back to back to back to back. But after like the second or third, I was like, okay, I need to get back to work. But it's opportunity to be a conversation in people's minds. So if you're in an industry and there's a negative connotation, or there's something that's going on, and you can claim the stake as far as on the mountain, you got to run with that. That's because it's only doing good for both Kendrick and Drake in terms of like they're being talked about, whether you like them or not. But the grand scheme of things, they have real estate in your mind. Going back to the algorithm scenario, you're back in their mind, and therefore you're gonna either talk to your friend, you're gonna talk to your mom, you're gonna go to work, and it's gonna be talked about, and you can't even escape it. And that is the true currency in terms of when it comes to attention, when it comes to the algorithm, because eventually you're going to make a lean decision of buying something directly or indirectly because of Drake or because of Kendrick. Like, that's the real your next 5 moves. That's the next chess move in terms of the marketing side of things. Because both songs, I've heard great songs on both sides, and there's definitely things where it's like, whoa, you said this, you said that. But like, bigger picture, if you're really looking at this as a producer, not a consumer, how can you be in somebody's top of mind? Because if you're making content and if you're creating social media content, but your content's not creating any type of social aspect to it, then it's kind of defeating the purpose.
Right. Right. You want it goes back to the attention thing.
Yeah.
And it's fun to watch what's happening, because I would get emotional about this before, because when we started, I told you, like, Drake's my guy. Like, that's my boy. So to see him, like, be in this right now, the old me would be like, get him. Go get Kendrick right now. Like, show him what's good. Like, that type of thing. But now I'm just like, I'm at a point where I like watching it from both sides, because if you look at the numbers, it's actually pretty fascinating, because you have Kendrick doing record streams for himself right now on Spotify, on Apple Music. Same thing with Drake. Record sales, record streams, record everything.
Because they're going back, like, all the references. Right. They're listening to the diss tracks, and then they're going back to referencing.
I didn't even think about it like
all that. Of the stuff that might have been said in that song.
Yeah.
In this song. Because for me, I'll watch videos of reactors. If I don't have anybody to bounce like a song off of, like, did you hear this?
Yeah.
There's a few reactors that I'll watch that'll decipher the bars of what's being said. But they're mentioning stuff from songs from both. So they're making you consume more than you even realize. But not to cut you off.
You just brought a whole new thought to my head right now, because like, one thing I noticed on the TikTok videos when all that stuff was happening is people were making videos on, oh, this song that Drake released 2 years ago now is starting to make sense. And it's like, people are going back and listening to this stuff, which is capturing more streams, it's capturing more attention. But it's awesome to watch, to be honest.
Even
I think it's good for hip hop.
Yeah.
Altogether, because I think the last really good, serious, like, rap battle we had, I mean, shout out to, obviously we had the Drake and Pusha T.
Yeah,
that was somewhat big. Then you had the Machine Gun Kelly and Eminem. But the biggest one that you go back to is Tupac and Biggie. I mean, that was the last, like, really, really big one we had. But they didn't have any sort of sense of marketing at that time. Oh. So it was very much like cutthroat artistry. It was very much like, we're going to sell numbers. That's the only metric we have. It's not even about attention. It's about, I want to end your career right now. Like, that type of deal. But I feel like in the back of this, and this is just a feeling I get, is when this first started, I was like, I don't see how this isn't a PR stunt for all parties, because it's not just like Drake and Kendrick. It's Rick Ross has come out of the woodwork. You have Metro Boomin coming out making songs about Drake,
the whole beef,
Kanye, everybody's jumping at ASAP Rocky. All these people are wanting to jump on this hype train right now and get sales and get marketing and all this stuff. So it's like, how much of this has to do with an actual beef and how much of this has to do with the fighting for attention? I think that's a whole nother thing about it too, which to me, I think it's awesome because it brings more creativity to the space. It brings more, I don't know if you would say lyricology or whatever, like, you know, the actual writing of lyrics and bringing it back to what hip hop really is. How creative can somebody get with the type of art that they're putting out there, the type of music that they're putting out there. So I've learned to look at it from, yeah, obviously I'll still be Team Drake, you know, but it's awesome to see both sides of it right now and see both sides winning because it's good for the industry altogether.
Yeah, if you're a creator, you always have to have that draw for, hypothetically speaking, as far as in your back pocket. You always have to account for the attention because attention is just as powerful as terms of actual fiat currency of whether it be a dollar or in this case a Bitcoin, because that comes with some type of dollar sign to some degree, because you're going to buy something to some degree. There's going to be a label that comes out, like example, when Taylor Swift, when the Super Bowl happened, Taylor Swift they literally, it was a whole PR where they were letting people know she was launching a label or a album. Either it was like the week of the Super Bowl or after, and then simultaneously that's tying together because she's dating Travis Kelce. Like that was intentional. Her people were like, we got to let people know we're launching this album and do it either the week of or the week after the Super Bowl because she's dating Travis Kelce. That was the conversation. That's the producer, because everybody is consumer to some degree, but some people are more producers. There's a lot of people that are all consumers, but in the case of people that are in the entrepreneur world, we're top heavy producer than we are consumer. So we have to, only way we understand it, because we've consumed stuff that someone else has produced. And so we always have to think about those things. But same thing with again, going back to the Drake and Kendrick, because I was thinking about Taylor Swift. I was like, wait, how did I get to Taylor Swift? But it's the same principle. It's the same principle as far as anybody that wants to jump into the beef. They have to contribute and get involved with it, because if they get involved with it and something sparks, then therefore they're going to reap some form of benefit of it. Like I've seen the videos of Rick Ross. He's like, what's going on? He's like, yo. And he's just
so
meme.
Goofy.
He's just so funny.
He's a whole vibe.
I love that he's on camera because he's just actual comedy.
He's a vibe. But all right, so unpopular opinion, really good friend of mine. So when Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce started dating, the first thing that came to my mind was PR stunt. Because you have, and again, who knows if it really is. I mean, obviously, I think they're still in a relationship today, but I just thought it was really interesting to have probably football's top personality right now on the top team dating the top, basically, music artist on the planet. And at the same time, he's going to the Super Bowl and she's releasing an album and became the first billionaire, like music artist, like that type of deal. Or it was something about $1 billion. Oh, she made $1 billion on her tour. On her tour. So unpopular opinion, but I'm quite sure that was a PR stunt, and the NFL knew what they were doing. But it's very interesting when you look at like how on top of things the NFL actually is when it comes to marketing, because I don't know if you saw the NFL draft, but they had Sketch announce one of the picks, and that shows you like how creative they're being as far as attention is concerned. They're seeing where attention's going right now, and they're like, we're going to jump on that. We're going to make content on that. I mean, they're on fire on TikTok right now, but to be able to keep up with, you know, culture and what's happening in culture, being able to make content surrounding that culture has completely skyrocketed their views, how much money they're making. Like, these players are going to be able to pull in. I mean, and this is a whole nother thing which we can talk about, but Caleb Williams. I mean, Caleb Williams, when you look at it from a football standpoint, you look at it from a marketing standpoint, he's the best of both worlds. And it's very interesting if you're somebody like my family's deep into the NFL and, you know, the draft and scouting and all that type of stuff. And we've always come at things from, you know, how's this player going to do in the NFL? But now Caleb Williams has kind of changed that. Like, he's a great player. He's a generational talent as far as, you know, the quarterback position is concerned. But at the same time, he's a very polarizing type character where he's, you know, modeling before he's getting into the NFL. He's painting his fingernails. He's wearing lipstick. He's like, you know, really changing what the image of a quarterback looks like. And the question becomes, if you're on the football side of things, how much of that is going to be a distraction in the locker room? But then on the marketing side of things, how much is the NFL eating that up too? Because they're like, now we have a whole nother audience that we can tap into. So it's fascinating to watch, because it's like they're on a roll. If I would say, for anybody that may be trying to navigate the marketing space or the attention space, NFL's a great product to look at. They do a really good job.
Yeah, it's all marketing is, and what this is, it's a huge video game. I was listening to Dan Coe. He lives in my building, has a huge YouTube following, and he was talking about all marketing is a multiplayer. It's a multiplayer video game with a lot of solo missions. So there's always something that you can refine. There's always something that you can increase or redefine. But there's a lot of missions you have to go into individually, and it just makes the most sense. But the NFL does that at the highest level. It's just a bunch of things to test and see what's happening. There'll never not be any side missions or a main quest that you have to go on to essentially create the reaction and attention that you want. So if you can always keep that state of mind, because I'm always learning something when it comes to social or what people are doing or what's working for me to what's working for clients. It's always changing. It's never the same. And now you're talking about, like, the algorithm keeps changing every 4 seconds. Before, I remember when Instagram shared everything, what's it called? Numerical? I can't even tell.
Like, based on when it was dropped.
Yeah.
For, like, from a time stamp standpoint.
Now it's just relevancy. Like, oh yeah, this was posted 7 hours ago or 2 days ago. Now I remember posting things, and I would see stuff within the minute that it was posted, and it was just, and you saw the decrease from 5 minutes ago to an hour. It was all in order. Now it's all based off of your preference, and now that's when cutting edge of an algorithm. But now it's changing ever so often with this algorithm of TikTok, which is what everybody's trying to replicate in their own socials. So it's a very interesting time to see how fast stuff's changing, to how much we have to be changing in order to stay on the cutting edge. So if you can continue to gamify marketing, and you're always trying stuff new, and you're always trying these solo missions for yourself, then you'll find, and then most importantly, paying attention to what's working or what's grabbing attention. You'll always be in a party in itself in terms of what's happening and what's not happening, or what's getting attention versus what's not. So
I've always heard this. There was a audiobook that I listened to a while ago, and he said, you want to, and this relates to what you're talking about in business, but this can translate to life too, is treat life like a buffet. Okay. So if you're going through a buffet, you're going to have all sorts of food out there. You're going to have the steaks, you're going to have the burgers, you're going to have the chicken, you're going to have the pork, you're going to have all of it, the macaroni and cheese. You go through the buffet line the first time, you just start putting stuff on your plate, right? Some of it, you don't even know if you're going to like it. Let me just try this because I have endless amount of food here. So you go through, you start eating stuff. You're like, oh, this burger's good, but this pork isn't good, right? And you just kind of sampling stuff, trying stuff. You're realizing what you like and what you don't like. You go through the buffet line the second time, you're grabbing stuff that you like the second time, right? And then maybe sprinkling in some other stuff that you haven't tried. Life's exactly the same way. It's, you're constantly trying new things. You're not staying the same. It's because you're changing all the time. Your preferences are changing all the time. What resonates with you changes all the time, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to stay the same.
Yeah.
I mean, it's boring. Let's face facts. It's boring. Like, you want to consistently be leveling up, and you want to consistently be moving towards something, whether it be a goal, whether it becoming the best father you can, whether it becoming, leveling up in your career, how much money you make, how much debt you're able to pay off, how much, you make in investing, whatever it is. You want to constantly be growing, but in order to do that, you have to try different things. And I think that's, again, where a lot of marketers are doing really, really well as far as attention is concerned. Because yes, the algorithms change all the time. Yes, AI is becoming a really huge thing where it's picking up on patterns. But how are you as a marketer going to know what people like unless you get vulnerable, try different things. Be okay saying, I might make this and it might flop. I mean, you just talked about some of the videos that you've been posting on each specific platform. Some of your content I've been watching on TikTok, really awesome content. Like, I'm not surprised it's getting the views that it's getting. Then others of them I'm watching and I'm like, yeah, that kind of makes sense too. But the point is you're trying different things.
Yeah, just trying it out.
Yeah.
Making adjustments to it. It's so interesting stuff that gets traction on TikTok, and then how it does on Instagram or Facebook. It's so intriguing to see. And then I'm gonna be starting posting reels pretty soon. Those same, but giving it specific titles to really help capture the attention in terms of when people look up the information. But yeah, it's really interesting. How much time do we have? 10 minutes. Okay. Great. No, it's really interesting. It's an interesting dance. I think I've been going super devoted on my own content. I say the past like 60 to 90 days, and it's just really been all in of trying different things as far as what's getting the attention of everything, and reminding myself like, okay, just continue testing, continue to try different things, coordinating with what to edit differently and how we can try different things. And no, I really enjoy it because, like I said, a lot of the reels a lot of the TikToks on TikTok, they've gotten some of the most engagement in terms of how many people have interacted with it. Yeah. To favoring it. I think that's also an important metric. I'm sure you got some data on that. In terms of like, all right, this video got favorited the most versus what's been shared the most.
Yeah, and it changes all the time. I think that's what makes it fun. I've made it fun is having to adjust to those changes. I don't want to make the same content because attention's changing all the time. So like now the thing that I'm starting to experiment with is more hooks, really figuring out, okay, what's going to capture the most attention, because I know the message I have is extremely important. I know that educating people on finance is what my goal is. It has nothing to do with how many views I get, but it's about, you obviously want to put yourself in front of as many people as you possibly can. So the views are a side effect of that. But I'm not that person that's like, I need to get 1 million views. Like, yeah, that's a bonus of it, but I can reach more people. And my message is important, and that's why I want to capture that attention in the first 5 seconds. So it's something that I've had to learn to play with. Like when I first started making content on TikTok, I would never talk about anything negative at all, because I don't like the idea of negativity. Negativity is of no concern. It's not. It's you as an entrepreneur or whatever you're doing. Negativity is a part of life. It's just another hurdle. Yeah. Just look at it, go, okay, that's there. Let me move past it. So when I first started making content, I would post nothing negative. I didn't like the idea behind it. I would only post positive things. Well, my engagement wasn't there. People weren't watching it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I did it subconsciously where I'm like, let me post something on here that's controversial and may get negative pushback. As soon as I did that, skyrocketed views. And so it's very similar when you talk about marketing and you talk about what's happening in the NFL with the polarizing, quarterback now in Caleb Williams, where half the people that are diehard football people that have been watching it their entire lives and are used to the old style of football that's, violent and, very straight cutting edge, like this is what we're going to do, like this is razor sharp, this is our focus on football all the time. Now you got the new school of people coming in that are starting to get interested, where they like the idea of attention, they like the idea of a polarizing figure, they like somebody who's going against the grain of what traditional football is, and they're capturing this massive audience. And that's what the NFL does really, really well on. And something to kind of segue, because I know we don't have a ton of time, but to kind of segue is Caitlin Clark. And I know we've heard a lot about how much money people in the NBA or any sport make compared to the female counterpart of them. The NBA is obviously the biggest example we have from them to the WNBA, but you look at Victor Wembanyama, who he just won Rookie of the Year this year. He's supposed to be the next LeBron. Really, just a freak athlete altogether. But his guaranteed contract for this year, I think, was $19 million. That's a rookie contract. And Caitlin Clark came in, and she's making, I believe it's like $78,000 this year for basketball. And those numbers are ridiculous. It's totally crazy when you look at that.
Yeah, the contrast is
it is, yeah.
Doesn't the NFL or NBA fund the WNBA? Am I not mistaken?
I don't know.
That's what I don't know. I've heard a lot of talks of it, but as far as my binging of information, but I may be wrong, but they say that the NBA funds the WNBA.
That could be true.
Yeah.
I mean, it would make sense, to be honest with you, from
negative.
a marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, that contrast is crazy. But the marketing, the controversy, the polarization of, you know, what she's done in her final years in college it's brought a lot of noise. And I don't even watch WNBA to see it, more of it, and people making controversy of it. Like, oh, like I've been following it in just terms of just at a very light level, but it's what the WNBA needs, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's like I'm about to go buy a Caitlin Clark jersey. You might see me rocking it on the next spot here real quick for real, because it's like this is what the WNBA needs right now. They need that polarizing figure. They need somebody who's going to make that noise and bring money into the game, you know, and
fill the seats.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, have you heard of the league? I think it's called the Big Three, the basketball league. The Big Three. Okay. So I know it was started by like 3 celebrities. I think Ice Cube is one of them, but basically it's a basketball league that they started. He came out and said, we'll pay Caitlin Clark $3 million to come play for us for a season. So that's the amount of marketing that she's bringing in. She's bringing in that much. Now, she chose to go to the WNBA. So obviously she's going to make the $78,000. But from a marketing standpoint, she's making a chess move type deal right now. She's looking at the $3 million and going, yes, I could make $3 million, but my name is worth more than that right now. The amount of attention I bring to the NBA is bigger than the dollar sign that I'm seeing right now. So it's like, this is the depth of vision you want to have when it comes to the attention that you're capturing. Is if you're putting out consistent content and you're trying new things and you're being on the cutting edge, you're somebody who's okay of taking risks, of saying, I'm going to go against the grain. I mean, the Pauls have done a great job of that. Jake Paul has done a great job of that. There's a reason why their brand is so big, why when they go into boxing or they go into wrestling, their name brings ticket sales.
They're leveraging the polarization,
It's the same thing. You're capturing attention. So it's like, it's just fascinating to watch that. And I think what Caitlin Clark is going to bring to not only the WNBA, but marketing for that league as a whole is concerned. It's going to completely change it upside down, where now we're having a topic about how they're getting paid the same as the NBA athlete is. But you have to have that person that comes along. That's okay going against the grain. That's somebody that's okay standing up and saying, this is who I am. Like the Caleb Williams, like the Drake versus Kendricks, like the Caitlin Clarks, like everything we've been talking about, like the TikToks that are standing up and saying, this is who we are. Like, we're going to create controversy. We're going to create a topic. We're going to allow attention to flood into this, and we're going to be okay with it either way. And that's what generates the revenue for each of these specific things, you know? So it's really cool to watch.
Push the boundaries. Push the boundaries of your marketing. Stay true to your art, but always be testing. So, and this is the 3rd episode of Market Moguls. And again, there's always something to talk about. So we're going to stay more consistent with it. And again, align your story with your marketing. Until next time.
Yes, sir.
Cheese.
Cheese.